Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Podcast Strikes Back. My name is George, and you're listening to our review for Upgrade with the boys Connor,
hello,
and Benny.
Hey there.
Guys, Upgrade is 2018 science fiction, fun-loving B-movie by Leigh Whannell, and it's his second film. And I was
Australia's
really excited.
own Leigh Whannell.
Australia's own Leigh Whannell, and you know, I was really excited to see this film, and it's been a trailer that we've discussed amongst ourselves a lot.
Yeah.
So we've seen it, part of Sydney Film Festival, which was really good fun, and we need a plot. We haven't planned out who's going to say the plot.
I'll jump in there.
You're going to jump in there?
If you
No. You
All right.
do this.
So this is set in the future.
Can I do it, George?
Oh, I'd prefer if you didn't
Don't
interrupt me,
derail this thing.
Set in the future where tech is very high.
It's very techy.
Can I do it, George?
Very high.
A guy loses his wife to some thugs who shoot her, and someone gives him the chance to get back at them, do a revenge plot by putting something called STEM in his neck, which stops him from being a quadriplegic, and he goes on this,
Which he is.
Which he is, by the way. It's not gone well. By the way, he became a quadriplegic when they killed his wife.
You're normally such a good storyteller. This is amazing. To introducing plot elements.
The tech that is very high threw me because I was pretty proud of myself for that one. I was like, fuck it, I'm done.
So if you weren't excited to see this movie already.
Sure as shit are now. Yeah.
So he gets the stem, and then what happens?
He
It's a revenge.
stops becoming a quadriplegic and he can walk. And,
Basically,
and
it's
talks to him.
Jarvis and Iron Man, the movie.
Yeah. Thank you,
Yeah.
Dad, for saving that. Should we get on to how we felt coming into the movie?
Why don't you take it away, Connor?
No, I think I'm going to compose myself first.
Okay.
George, you go ahead.
Yeah, as I said before, super excited for this.
Blumhouse.
I've been following Leigh Whannell. Blumhouse.
Blumhouse.
Fuck yeah. Like, can I just talk on this podcast without getting interrupted? Like,
Stop
I'm really I'm noticing this week, you fucking guys. I've been following Leigh Whannell for a long time. Yeah, you bastard. And he's, since Saw, man, since the first Saw.
What do you think of Saw?
He was James Wan's right-hand guy. You know, he created the Saw franchise, he created the Insidious franchise together, and now, I don't think he did that great of a job on Insidious 3. I found that very disappointing compared to the first two, which I hold up as two of the best horror films of all time, and particularly number 2. I think that's absolutely fantastic. So I think he stumbled on his directorial debut. So I was anticipating, is he going to be able to pull it off? But as you said, Benny, very, energetically before, Blumhouse is involved with this. And whenever we talk about them a lot, whenever I see their name on something, I get excited.
We're around them.
I was excited for this. And just another thing with the Blumhouse, the fact that they're doing science fiction, that was interesting as well.
So this is Blumhouse.
And now I'm done.
Can we
So
talk?
now you guys
We
can
may
talk.
speak, Ben.
I'm gonna have a little light. Yeah.
So this is
George is talking.
Hold
Highly
your-
sensitive.
hold
Don't
your-
say anything.
hold your applause.
George, you've had your chance.
Hey,
I'd
my
really like
highly sensitive light is on this week. Fucking pay
a
attention.
trigger line.
So this is Blumhouse Tilt.
Yeah.
So this is like an offshoot of their main kind of horror branding, because this is, as you said, like a sci-fi action film. It's got the violence of a horror movie, but it is not a horror film.
Yeah. Very tense, very kind of yeah. A lot of Jesus, I'm really killing it today. A lot of horror aspects to it. Also very similar to you, George, going into this. Seeing the trailer got me really hyped up.
So we raved about the trailer.
Yeah.
When we first saw that on the show.
Yeah. And I sort of was a bit worried that the trailer kind of gave away the best parts of the film, particularly as the trailer started to come along, because they were showing a lot of action scenes that seemed to have a lot of oomph to them. So went in with a little bit of hesitation on that. But other than that, was super excited to see it. And really engaged with anything that Blumhouse puts out, because they seem to be on the money when it comes to putting out just good films, like not necessarily big blockbusters, but good films.
Good films made cheap as well.
Yeah. The budget for this one was like $2 to $3 million, I think, actually.
Yeah.
So we
Nothing
couldn't have been much more hyped for this movie, I think.
Yeah.
It was the way they shot the action sequence with the stabilization on the character that Logan Marshall-Green plays. That really hooked me into this, and was something I was highly anticipating. So, guys, let's talk about some of the good stuff in this film. I think for me, one thing that really stood out was just the way they went about tech. The high tech. The high tech. Fuck, man, we're really on the ball this week. I thought the way he did this and did things with AI cars, kind of like biotech, I thought it was really interesting.
Subtle world building.
Yeah.
They're very a light touch.
Yeah.
You get it. You'd see exterior shots of like a bunch of cars that look like cars today, and there'd be like one like kind of much more futuristic looking car.
Felt very much like this is around the corner type futuristic.
It didn't give a year, but yeah, it didn't feel far off.
Yeah, like this is what Australia could look like in 10 to 20 years, very conceivably.
It definitely looks like Australia, though, doesn't it?
Right now.
It's almost certainly Melbourne.
Yeah.
It's not almost certainly. It was Melbourne.
Yeah, it was
so this is an Australian production, which is interesting to note. Did you guys feel it was noticeably like not an American film?
I don't think so, and I think they worked around the budget restraints really, really effectively. Like there was never that sequence where I was like, man, they shouldn't have put that in because they don't have the budget. I don't think they ever overstretched themselves.
Definitely.
I think they played within their strengths. There was never like that CG moment that was like, oh, why the fuck did you do that?
Yeah.
They seem to do a lot of practical stuff. And then the CG was more kind of the widescape, like, it was static images or static objects that weren't.
It feels like there was
around.
like one establishing shot of like the city that was like heavily CG, which was clearly, I assume they worked on from the start of production to the end of production because it was really good.
Yeah.
It looked great.
I was expecting it to look really like, you get that sheen sometimes when you look at the futuristic worlds of that. And it seemed like they didn't go overboard. They just added a few things that clearly made this, 20 years in the future, 10 years in the future, something like that. So yeah, I liked the look of it. I liked the design that they used for those futuristic things. It's just like really simple things like robot arms, functional AI, or not even AI, but functional voice recognition. Just it seemed to like make sense. Like, yeah,
it felt very sophisticated and it felt very well thought out.
Yeah, it was very impressive how the voice recognition could decipher the fake American accents. Like that's really impressive.
Did you mind the accents? Was it obvious? Was it
one character was just straight up Australian?
Yeah.
But mostly I think it was pretty good.
Yeah, it never distracted me.
American lead. Everyone else was pretty much Australian.
Yeah.
And I think,
speaking of the lead, what did you think of him?
Mostly pretty good. Okay, so Logan Marshall-Green, I've liked this guy for a long time.
Oh, no, you said that the other night. I'm going to call you out on that. We've given that guy a lot of shit.
No,
we have. I think even in the Spider-Man, I'd be interested to go back to our Spider-Man review.
Me too, because I'm not sure what you're talking about. Because
before that,
as
and
an
then
actor,
it was like, oh, he's now hitting his stride.
No, okay, so I've always found it amusing that he looks exactly like Tom Hardy.
Yeah.
Like I think that's hilarious that he's
I never realized until you pointed it out before the screening.
But I can't go back now.
He's well known as Tom Hardley. Like he's the poor man's Tom Hardy. But no, ever since I saw him in Devil, the Shyamalan production about the elevator, it's Devil in an elevator.
I love that movie.
I really like that movie. Yeah, and I really liked him in that. And I've just kind of seen him pop up in roles here and there over the years, and I really like the dude.
I'm going to go back to that podcast.
I'm really curious, yeah. But I was so happy to see him in this vehicle for himself, and I think he does an amazing performance in this film. Like just in terms of like a physical performance, it's great because he has to play a character whose body is not under his control. It's being moved by like a separate entity, technically. So he's a head on top of like a machine, you know?
See, I actually found that to be a little bit too on the nose for me.
Well, I think you're an idiot. Sorry.
So aggressive, so quickly.
I've been drinking.
Most aggressive movie review on the internet.
Like it felt like he was doing a robot thing. Like, he's walking.
Okay, I think I completely agree with Ben. Like some of those shots where he's like, what's going on? Like I am clearly not in control. I thought he really sold it.
So the shots that he's actually not in control, I 100% agree. But he does the robot arms the entire time.
I think it's homage to
very
RoboCop.
precise. And I think it works, yeah.
I think it's homage to RoboCop.
It was noticeable.
I don't care what it's an homage to. I just think it's stupid.
I do.
I mean, the whole concept.
No, fuck you. Fuck you.
I think like the whole concept was that was that he was in control. Like, and I thought that kind of got derailed by the fact that it's just a pathway between his brain and the muscles. Like it felt weird that the muscles would react like that. I just felt like he would walk around normally. I'm just waving my arms a lot. For anyone that's listening to this as a podcast, that's not going to make sense.
How come every time I drink, you guys get drunk? Every time we do
genuinely don't know. Yeah, so I thought that for the most part, and particularly when STEM was in control, I thought that was, and you see a lot of that in the trailer. So it's not a spoiler or anything. I thought he did a really good job of keeping his facial expressions very kind of separate from what his body was doing.
They're like surprised,
and
astonished at what was going on before his eyes.
The one, like the main scene in the trailer that I assume everyone's seen is just the first time that STEM takes control of his body. Like that's a fucking masterwork.
Yeah,
of
fantastic.
Like, physical acting. It's very
fantastic.
It really feels like there's two different players in that scene.
Yeah, and I like how his eyes move like in different directions than his body is obviously moving. So it feels like his face he has control of, but nothing else. I'd be really interested to know what if that was just him acting or if they did something. Like it seemed like some shifty camera work as well.
Yeah, it's a thing. You'll sometimes see it when people stabilize. If you stabilize to people's eyes, that it'll move in that way, like on After Effects, and they've clearly gone for that kind of look. But it's just such a like the way Leigh Whannell has used that in the direction. It's almost used as like, oh, okay, now you almost feel like a change in his body when this camera work comes in, and it's very effective for the storytelling.
Yeah,
they really evoke the idea that he's a passenger on his own body.
Yeah,
very effectively.
What do you think about the direction as a whole, like Leigh Whannell, and how he's put this together, like as a whole piece?
Yeah, oddly enough, I don't know whether this is down to direction or acting or writing. I was not as convinced with the relationship between the main character and his wife. For whatever reason, I felt like that entire first 15 or 20 minutes when you're setting up a character and you have to do a lot of exposition to try and say, like, this is who the character is. And he's like, I work with my hands and you guys use technology. Pew, pew, pew. I don't know why I added the pews. I felt like that was very kind of like, all right, let's just get the facts out there. And it didn't feel natural.
It almost felt like Scriptwriters 101.
Yes,
he's into the old muscle cars.
Yeah, exactly. And the relationship between him and the wife didn't feel very natural. Like there's some people that you just sense have a chemistry, or there's other ways of telling that story that don't rely on chemistry. I mean, for whatever reason, all I think of is John Wick, and you in those first couple of scenes, you get a genuine feeling that he misses his wife, and that you invent in your own head how wonderful that relationship would have been. And while I think he did a good job of acting as though he missed his wife, him actually with his wife didn't feel as natural.
It worked for me. I found the actress Melanie Vallejo, she's an Australian actress, very charming. I thought she was quite effective in the role. I just want to mention that she's best known for playing the Blue Mystic Ranger in Power Rangers Mystic Force.
Hell yeah. Yeah, I know what you mean, and we can get into it more in spoilers. I think it was actual conscious choice, but some of the scenes between those two characters, I want to touch upon something there. But I feel as though, like, what I really liked about the script and the direction was that they took a long time to set up the character.
They did.
And they, like Logan Marshall-Green's character, like they take him to the lowest lows. Like this guy is broken by around the sort of quarter mark of this movie. And I loved that. I thought it was super effective, and it all carried into the vengeance plot, and the whole, as a whole piece, it worked really well. And I thought the time they took to do that it paid off.
Well, there's a scene early enough on where he just breaks down crying, and that was really effective and really cool to see, like this, action hero. So like he's the action hero of the movie. He's just at his lowest point. He's just broken.
Which for essentially a B horror movie, like a C, that makes this a cut above, I feel.
This was more than just for me, it was more than a B action film. And obviously there's the aspect of the sci-fi that makes it a little bit more than that. The reason that I wouldn't just call it a B action film, for me, like Dread is a B action film where it's about the action. Whereas this one, it felt like there's a little bit more to it, a little bit more intrigue.
And intrigue as well on the emotional front, and kind of like technology, like some of the themes of what happens with STEM. It goes to some very interesting places. That
it was less of an action film than I expected. I think that might be the budget showing, but the stuff that they had outside of the action was pretty effective, so it wasn't a complaint necessarily.
And I know we've touched on it, but the action scenes I found were really well choreographed. Very bloody and gory, but there's one in particular that a lot of people have been talking about that I think everyone in the theater started clapping just because it was so it was so clearly the climax of this film.
There was one where I was just like, this is fucking awesome. We'll talk about it in spoilers.
Yep.
But there's clearly a horror element to this film. Some really gruesome stuff and the body horror aspect to it. I love that, and I feel like this film's like a combination of RoboCop, some kind of Cronenbergian kind of thing, The Matrix as well, with some of the fight choreography.
A lot of RoboCop, definitely.
It's kind of like Leigh Whannell's taken all these different films, all these different things that he likes from them, and put it through with his horror sensibilities, and come out with a really impressive product. And it's clearly showing that at the box office. It's performing really well for the budget that it's on. One thing I loved in this was the score.
The score's amazing.
Yeah.
I thought it just it didn't overstate itself, but it just kind of like the bedding was there, and the bedding was well made.
I felt it was Blade Runner light.
Yeah.
Would you agree?
Yeah.
Yep. Who composed the score?
I don't know.
Because I didn't.
Jed Palmer.
Do you mean like Blade Runner 2049?
Yeah.
Specifically?
Right.
Yeah. Jed Palmer. Yeah, I thought it was fucking fantastic. I probably didn't sink in until the actual credits started playing and his music was playing on top. But I was like, holy shit, what a fucking awesome score.
Yeah, and I think it just kind of adds. There's something about sci-fi that allows you to do so much. I mean, it really kind of sets the scene. I mean, there's certain scores that just fit certain genres. Like you can tell when you're in a fantasy realm. Like there's a very particular score for that. There's a particular score for science fiction, and I think when it's done right, it really allows you to kind of settle into the world.
Did you also get a bit of a a humor aspect to this?
Yeah. The movie was hilarious.
I love that. And it made the film nuanced and didn't keep it like all dark and depressing and down and out. Like we had these little moments sprinkled in that just adds a few little peaks and troughs to the film that makes it intriguing and keep your interest.
For a large chunk of this film, it's a buddy cop movie. It's like the straight-laced AI guy and the old-fashioned likes to do it analog style other guy.
Yeah.
And they're like trying to work on this case together and try to work out their differences, and it's fucking awesome. It's so funny.
Should we give final thoughts and then we can get into spoilers?
Yeah. Any negatives just before we do final thoughts?
I've already mentioned my negative, which is I thought that the first 15 minutes felt very much like a setup. It just didn't feel very natural to me. That's kind of my only glaring issue.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. It wasn't that I didn't like. I liked how far they took him in terms of like how the lows he had to go through.
That was fine, yeah.
The trauma. But as you said, the relationship with the wife just felt a little too script 101.
Yeah.
Screenwriters 101. The negative I'll have for this is maybe sometimes like few little parts in the middle of the film where I was like, there's a bit of a lull here. Like we're kind of doing the same thing over and over. Let's maybe, shave off a couple scenes here and there. But other than that, I was really nitpicky kind of complaint.
There's a lot of stuff in between the action scenes in this action movie.
Yeah. Which is surprising because it's a 95-minute film. Like, it is not a short film.
It is a short film.
Sorry?
It is a short.
Oh, sorry. That's what I meant to say.
Yeah. It definitely felt longer than that to me.
Yeah, it did.
Not in like a really damning way, but it definitely felt longer than that. And this is like such a minor quibble, but I don't even know what this means exactly, but I know if I watched this without any prior knowledge, I would have been able to tell that this was an Australian film. And I don't know what that is exactly, what it is about it exactly, but there's just something that shows about it that it's not.
George, mate.
My bad.
Fudgy boy. Oh, too popular.
Just mute it.
No, you won't. It's just something about it, yeah, that...
It's the roads. It's whenever they're driving around.
No, not even talking about the locations. Just talking about like
the feel. Yeah,
the quality, the feel, the quality,
Production
the quality
design
of the film, the quality of the on-screen people, and
there's something that comes across as like this was not made in Hollywood.
It's like kind of like the Canadian production or something.
Reminds me of Daybreakers or something, where
for better or
Totally.
for worse, because I'm not sure if it's either.
yeah.
Generally speaking, Australian-made films tend to be lower budget and kind of less have that Hollywood sheen.
Shit.
And shit. But this was not one of them. But it felt like an Australian film.
Mm.
Alrighty, guys. So let's do
Final
thoughts. Benny, do you want to finish your final thought there? Negative.
This movie was probably not as good as the trailer. Not like, and that's not a complaint. The trailer was like 11 out of 10. I was like, this is my most anticipated film, and I really enjoyed the movie. I'm not a patriot by any means, but fucking good on you, Aussies. It's a good movie. I would recommend anyone who gives any kind of shit about action or like schlock or B grade stuff, like go out and see this. It's so much fun.
Yeah, I don't think I could have said it any better.
Mm.
This is a really awesome film, and it's a film that is probably worth seeing in a large cinema. Just for the atmosphere. There's people cheering, like I don't generally encourage people cheering in the middle of the films because I think it makes you a dickhead.
There was applause, yeah.
But there was moments where I was like,
I shrieked at one point, which we could talk about. But I literally squealed. Like I've never done that before.
You need to have the crunch of those massive speakers for some of these scenes where it's like, oh God, it's gut wrenching. Yeah, I'm definitely going to pick this up on Blu-ray. I feel like this is a film that I really want to get behind and spread the love. And, I'm just so stoked that Leigh Whannell has been able to produce a film like this because he's really taken up a notch from Insidious 3, in my opinion. I think he's really produced a great little sci-fi horror film. There's
a lot of room to grow from Insidious 3. I say that because I'm not even having seen the film. To be honest, I didn't even know it was out. I thought it still had yet to come out.
It's really disappointing from number 2.
Everything I looked like, all the advertising and just the feel of it, I was just like, I don't want to do this.
Yeah. So yeah, I think we all highly recommend Upgrade, and definitely go check this out in the cinema because it really that soundtrack's fantastic, and as we're going to get into in spoilers right now,